All right, so I believe that we are live. I think so. Yes, Chase will also be joining. Yep. She will be here, which I'm really excited about. So she'll be talking a lot about the more governance side of stuff. All right, so let me, on the side here, sort of tweet out that we're going. Excited about. So, boom. Boom. All right, I tweeted it out. And I'm also going to send a announcement. All right, boom. Sent the announcement. What's up, Andrea? Oh,
No.
what? Oh, hey.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
How's this Saturday? Oh, I guess it's Saturday evening for you, right?
Yep, 5 p.m.
Nice. Good the day at all?
Yeah, I'm actually in the mountains. I tried skiing.
Oh,
I'm usually a
really?
snowboarder, so I've been skiing a bit today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I love skiing. I'm not that good of a snowboarder, but I do ski a lot. Never anywhere good to go though.
No?
No, cause like I mean, I usually ski like on the East Coast, like in
Oh,
Vermont
like
or
Vermont? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like it's never anywhere good. But one time I went out west in the somewhere in Colorado. I think it was like Snowbird or Alta, the mountain was called, and it was amazing. There's a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, it's like from hill to mountain, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like from pure ice to like actual snow.
Well, maybe one day we'll have a Emerald Dow ski trip.
Yeah, yeah. Let's fund it through Emerald City. I love that. All the gated steps out on the slopes. Hey, BZ. Hope you got some sleep. Oh my god.
Hello. How much sleep did you get?
A few hours. A few hours. Pretty good.
A few hours. How much is that?
Well, I want to ask you first. How much did you get? Because I doubt you got that much. We got Max, Mr. Power Gauge. What's up, everybody? Usually we have a few people trickling in as the minutes go by. So
What's going on?
not much, Max. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here for the first town hall that I'm
Yeah,
able to be here for.
yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you. Of
having me.
course. What's up, Amit?
Also, skiing in out west, so good. Snowbird Alta,
Oh,
Vail.
you go to Alta?
I've been to Snowbird Alta in that's Utah, I'm pretty sure,
Oh,
right?
Utah. Okay, yeah, yeah. There you go.
Salt Lake, and then Vail in Colorado. Those are yes. Vermont is also some pretty good skiing too. You said
Yeah,
Killington, right?
yeah, yeah. Killington, Stratton, Okemo.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's funny.
all perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know those. You know when I went to Snowbird, I don't think they actually allow snowboarders in the mountain, right? They sort of secured them
Uh,
to Alta, or is that the opposite?
I think that's Alta,
Oh,
but
it's Alta.
same,
Okay.
but same. They're right next to each other, so
Yeah, exactly. I
yeah,
remember.
Wait,
that's yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
they separate snowboarders and skiers?
No, it's like they just ban snowboarders on Alta because they
Really?
don't like snowboarders like pushing snow down the mountain. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. They get bullied.
It's not very inclusive.
Yeah, I guess it's not, but I think a bunch of people get mad. What's up, Amethyst? Good to have you here too. Bam, hello. As always, Amit, hello. Oh, we have Chase here. Hey, Chase.
Hello, hello.
So yeah, so
Hey.
to all of you that have been hearing me talk about Chase for the past 4 weeks, or probably longer than that, we finally have Chase here to sort of talk about the more governance side of stuff that we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, as always, I'm gonna wait another like 5 minutes here because we usually get like a ton of people rolling in after. Kelcoin, what do you think about the little dragon next to the the guild leader thing? You like it? I saw that you added the emojis last night, so it was like I just wanted those. Oh, and if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, I added these things. I'm typing them in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can start reacting to each other now. Oh yeah, and you have the Emerald bot too, exactly.
These could be good reactions if we decide to link them with like an EC bot reputation trigger, right? So
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you react with the hammer, it would give the governance reputation points, or if you react with the sword, it would be the product. I don't remember which one is which, but
Yeah, no, it's sort of exactly what I was thinking too. I've been thinking a lot about that, like how that distribution is actually gonna work. Because we'll get into a bit and like like who's actually doing that, but I haven't really thought too much about like how they're gonna do it and whether it's through a Discord bot or website. I guess we'll have to figure that out.
yep.
Hey Bam. Oh, what's up, Fishy? Good to have you here too. All right, so I'm gonna get started at 1 minute at 10:05 my time, and then we'll get going with the building stuff. Let me share my screen. All right. Also, Bam, I included the campaign registry thing in here. I hope you don't mind. Oh, Chaos from Flones. Heyo. Good to have you here too. Tommy. Tommy's back in action in the town halls. Hey, Tommy. All right. So, I guess we'll get started with the intro here. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Town Hall number 3, which is the 4th Town Hall. We always get those indexes, a little weird, but we're back on another lovely Saturday. So we have these every other Saturday, and excited to be here for this one. So we're probably gonna have a bunch of people trickling in as time goes on, but that's totally fine. People can always catch up with the recording or whatnot. So yeah, let's get started. So as always, we're gonna start with the building guild, woohoo, and then we're gonna go to the governance and the education. And we actually have a special guest, Chase Chapman herself, Dow Queen here for the governance side of things. All right, and hey, Sport Monkey, good to have you here too. All right, so the first thing we're gonna go over. So we always sort of talk about the Emerald bot. What's the current status of it? Well, it's currently live on Mainnet. As many of you know. It's in the Matrix World Discord originally, the Thing.Fun Discord, Flones, and .Find. So that's really awesome. And then recently, in the past 2 weeks, the updates are that it's also in Party Goobers, the Genie Ace Discord. So thank you to Dean for setting that up. And also Flovitar. So thank you to Luca, if you're watching this, for setting that up in the Flovitar Discord. And it seems to be working pretty well. So It's actively verifying those that have the Manicky NFTs in the Genius Discord. Make sure to check those out. It's a super cool project. And then the Party Goers and Flovatar as well. Cool. So last time we asked like what other features can we add? And that's still sort of a lingering question. So as we sort of get into the whole PoApp thing, which we'll be talking about in a bit, we could definitely keep the Emerald bot in the back of our minds and think about what features we could add to this bot. And I'm sure we're gonna return to it at some point to talk about it. So we can just keep this in the back of our mind, keep reaching out to other Discords and seeing what's going on. And if they what people need. So that's that. Now the other thing here is documentation. So the last time we asked where will it live, Notion, Gitbook, Emerald City website. Well, we sort of have an answer to that. So in the past couple weeks, we've created this documentation, which sort of leads me to our next slide, which was the documentation. So cool. So let's actually check this out a little bit and see some of the cool stuff that's going on. So if we go to the documentation, we thank you to Calcoin BAM for setting this up. So they did most of this actually. So if we go to the welcome page here, it's just some simple Emerald City stuff, an introduction to who we are. So, what we aim to do, what our goals are, what our vision is, and what our values are. So be passionate, mindful, research first. So all the cool things that we do at Emerald City. And then there's a tab called How We Function. With the guilds here, there's a brief description of what guilds are. And, we have the Education Guild, we have the Building Guild, and the Governance Guild, each of which have their sort of own, little tab here. So if we were to click on these ones, it'll show you, one of Emerald City's goals is to provide educational resources and helpful, welcoming support for those that want to learn flow and cadence. So this is what we do. You can find the guild under education category. So it sort of leads you to where, it is in the Discord. Obviously, many of you know that it's in the education category. So that's all cool. And now there's also educational resources here in the Building Guild, who we are, the products page. So this is a list that actually BAM had added a couple days ago to sort of talk about like, what the current products are and like where we may need help. So you can see that, one of the launch products is Emerald Bot, right? That's pretty obvious. And there's a link to the guide here. But, there's also a few other things going on. So Emerald City's webpage, which we'll talk about in a second. The UI is under development by Dean and the Genius team. The PoApps, which, we definitely need assistance here on the front end, whatever. So we'll get into all these in a bit. There's a setup guide. So if anyone ever asks you how to like set up the Emerald Bot in their Discord, there's a long setup guide here that's pretty helpful, I think. And then lastly, the Governance Guild, right? So that's all cool. So just wanted to quickly show that, to show that, documentation is under the works, and it's just more to be added soon. All right. Cool. So the next thing is Emerald City's website. So wow, boom, woohoo. Last time we asked who wants to take up this task, answer was Dean and the Genius team. So I don't believe we have Dean here right now, but this I'm really, really excited about because I think it looks really cool. So we sort of have two prototypes going on right now. They're both identical except for the fact that the top one is a little different. So this one has like a single emerald here, and this one has a bunch of emeralds in the background. Now the cool thing about the one on the left, even though like I think just to the immediate eye, the one on the right looks a little smoother. But the one on the left, the cool thing is that it has a little animation. Now I'm too much of an idiot to understand how to get like an animation into Google Slides. But the point is that this one has a cool animation behind it. So I would check out the website channel in Discord if you want to see the animation. So Mr. Power Gauge says, question, how do we contribute draft documentation? Oh, so if you want to, so Mr. Power, if you want to be added to the documentation and add some documentation, then I will go ahead and add you to the Gitbook, and then, you could sort of do whatever you'd like. So it should be easy enough. I can just pretty much add you as a contributor.
A question there, is that through a GitHub, like the Gitbook interface, or is it connected with GitHub somehow so people can contribute open source?
So it's actually connected through Gitbook. To tell you the truth, Andrea, I have no idea how like it could be connected to GitHub, although I think that'd be sick. So like if we could do that so that it could be contributed to open source, then that would be super cool. But it's just Gitbook currently, yeah. Hey Chase. Oh, welcome Arduino, Blue Sign, good to have you, and it's Batman. Heyo, awesome. Cool. So that's the Emerald City website. Again, thank you to Dean. And if anyone has any suggestions about this webpage, by the way, head over to the _website channel in the building category on Discord and check this out so to give some feedback. But I think it looks sick. I mean, I'm seriously blown away by the amount of progress that they have done. All right, cool. So the next thing, so this is what I'm really hype about, which is Emerald ID. So Emerald ID, what is it? Well, it's basically a way for you to verify yourself in Discord, only one time ever. So sort of the reason why this came about is because right now, if you go into DAOs or projects on Ethereum with collab.land, every time that you sort of launch collab.land and verify yourself, you have to sign a transaction with MetaMask saying this is me, right? And you have to do it every single time. Now, the issue with that is that it's sort of annoying because, like, why should you have to verify yourself multiple times? So Emerald ID is a way for you to verify yourself only ever one time, and then no matter what Discord you're in, the bot will automatically recognize you as who you are. So that's sort of the point of it. Now, after you do that, you can verify your token holdings. Yeah, so that's the cool thing. So I actually want to show you, like, a brief demo of this. So let me sort of tab out here and bring over my Discord for a second to sort of show you what I mean by this. So if we go to the Emerald ID channel here, now, of course, if this breaks, let's just blame testnet. That's what I always do. But if we click on verify here and then click on setup Emerald ID, so I unlinked my account so this will work. Let's click on setup Emerald ID and this will launch a web page. Now, if I log in with Blockdo, you know, before this meeting, I set up a stupid email called coolkid13070 so that I wouldn't get hacked. But anyway, this is a dummy email that I set up on Mainnet. And if I confirm this and click create Emerald ID, we should get a nice little animation here called, you know, it says setting up your Emerald ID. Cool little spinner up top. Andrea and I, the CSS legends, spent some time setting this up, and also big thank you to FR Labs if you're seeing this, because pretty much most of this styling was done by FR Labs, but it was also Andrea and I figuring out how to do CSS, which was very fun. But anyway, you can see that it went through here. I didn't really have time to explain the other stuff because I was getting distracted, but it shows success. So it says please go back to Discord and click verify again, and that's about it. So hold on, let me. Okay, cool. So if we go back to so it says success. Please go back to verify, and I like that the hand is little like holding little emerald icon. So anyway, if we X that out and go back to our Discord, now if I click verify again, it'll know who I am and say you've been given the emerald role. And if I was to go to, for example, .find, let's go to .find, go to verify find name and click on verify. It's going to say you don't have enough token holdings, right? And that's because I logged in through CoolKid, which doesn't have a find name. But the point is that the bot automatically recognized me and knew that I didn't have enough tokens here. So I can go into any Discord I want and link myself and link myself only one time, and that would be it. That's sort of the beauty of Emerald ID, right? So super cool stuff. I'm looking at the chat. Love this. Thanks, fam. Floating. Yeah, looks nice. Thanks, Amit. I like to think that we broke FR Labs UI. So true, actually. It's pretty much exactly what happened. So yeah. Now the question here is, is Mainnet, right? So currently the Emerald ID transaction is on testnet. Now, to be fully honest with you, like besides testnet going down a lot, I don't see like a very urgent reason to get it on Mainnet. Thank you, Blue Sign. But yeah, it currently is on testnet. So here's my question: like, should we get this to Mainnet? And if we can, is there anything we should add to the contract before we deploy? The reason I ask this is because, as many of you know, once you deploy to Mainnet, you can't really like update the contract. I mean, you can just deploy a new one, but that's like sort of strange. So the cool thing about keeping it in testnet right now is that it works perfectly fine. And in addition to that, if we want to add features, we can add it like pretty much right away, right? Like we can just go in there, add a new feature, and then it's like done in the testnet contract. But we can't do that on Mainnet. Now, if we think that Emerald ID is fine the way it is now, just a mapping from address to Discord ID, let's go ahead and maybe try and get this to Mainnet. Otherwise, I don't really see a reason to make that super urgent. So, can you deploy it in beta? Oh, I'm not sure, Amethyst. I've never heard of that before. But I think either way, it's probably best practice to like figure everything out beforehand. And so if we do want to update the contract, it might not make full sense to do that. And yes, I mean, I do have the link to the contract. If anyone, I guess, I actually admit, if you don't mind, I guess I'll send that to you afterwards. But it's on my GitHub somewhere. It's under like it's under the Blockdo auth repo. Fits the cadence params. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so there we go. So I mean, yeah, we could always deploy in beta if we wanted to. All right. But that's sort of a question I'm posing to everyone. It's like, the main question here is like, are there other features you could think of being used with Emerald ID, and maybe we should incorporate that before we go to mainnet? Okay.
Hey,
Hey, Busan.
yeah, just one comment of this. Before, like, if we will deploy to mainnet, maybe we can do something like this. For example, you went to find, click the verify again. Maybe we can get rid of that part. I was thinking.
Oh, so even just like clicking the button and you just like automatically have it?
Yeah, something like that. Like it can be, like for example, you mapped your Emerald ID, and this bot will check who is joining to, for example, find Discord. And when somebody joined, it will automatically check if they have the Emerald ID. And then if they have the Emerald ID, it will check if they have the tokens and give automatically the flare, or I don't know how it's called.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea. I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm pretty sure the bot can check who's joining. And so if Emerald ID becomes popular enough, then we would assume most people have it, and we could definitely do that. I guess the reason I didn't do that initially was because like I guess no one really has an Emerald ID right now, because like we're sort of like just announcing it. But that's a great idea, Blue Sign, and I want to look into that. And I guess like what they could do is if they don't have an Emerald ID, it just would do nothing, and then you could still go to that channel and click verify. So, cool. I like that idea a lot.
Also, one more thing. I think we should also handle, for example, like if I have tokens now, I verified myself, I get the flare, but if somehow I get rid of these tokens or like lose these tokens or like send to you, I should also lose my privileges.
Yep, exactly. So that's actually the next big thing I have to work on. To be honest, I have no idea how I would even begin to do that. But I think because I just don't know like how I would loop through all the things on a back end. You know what I mean? So, I guess if anyone more experienced than me has an idea of how I would do that, that would be awesome, because we definitely need to implement that, in case anyone like transfers it away or something like that. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm actually going to include that in the slides here, like how can we sort of get rid of tokens after a while. Cool. Thanks, Poseidon. So the next thing here is the floats, right? So, or the PoApps on Flow. So, for those of you that haven't been, like, I guess in the building chat in a bit, we've been talking a lot about bringing PoApps to Flow. And the reason for this is because we sort of talked to we talked a lot to the people at Flowverse, so Niche and James, both who said, hey, we really want PoApps on Flow, and so I think it was a great idea. So we're sort of going back and forth. Oh, and I guess I should explain what a PoApp is. You can think of PoApps as like participation awards almost. So for example, if Flowverse is having a Twitter space and they want to give a participation badge to everyone that came to their Twitter space, right now they would give them like a quote unquote PoApp. And so what that would do is, basically like, the person would, get the PoApp, and then it would just be like a participation thing, or like I was there. But this doesn't exist on Flow, and so we want to bring it to Flow. And I see Eric, yeah, +1 opposed. Yeah, thanks, Eric. So Eric is actually Eric, you lead the Party Groups project, and I love the vibe in that Discord, so I would definitely recommend checking that out to anyone tuning in. But anyway, so yeah, so we want to bring this to Flow, right? And so the current progress is that I've written the smart contracts, transactions, and scripts for the PoApp system. Now, right now it's named PoApp, but obviously this will be changed to like whatever we want to call it. But we were going back and forth on like what to actually call this. So the initial idea was like IWT, which is like I was there. Then we also sort of got into GEMS, which isn't an acronym. It's just simply like we thought it'd be cool because of Emerald. But the one that I personally like the most is Float, which is flow attendance. So if everyone's good to go on Float, I think that would be a really cool thing. I like, yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I like IWT too, but Float is more pronounceable. So actually, I do like Float a lot. It's one syllable, right? Float. Yeah, okay. You have to clap it out. Cool, yeah. So look at that. Boom, resounding support for Flow. Even better than PoApp? True. Screw PoApp. Trash system. Float. Nice. Look at that. I'll add my support as well. How about that? But everyone seems to like Float. All right, cool. So that's I guess that's settled. So the question here is that, so I've actually written the contract for this, and I'm gonna change everything to Float. Still coming in. I like this. Nice, guys. But if anyone is okay, so here's the other thing. So if anyone is interested in working on sort of like the front end or graphical design for this, I'd love to get in contact with you, or if you know anyone that's interested in this. I know that Max, so props to Max, has sent an awesome like demo of like I was there. But would love to see any ideas we have on Flow, and if anyone, like I said, is knows or is sort of a talented front end or graphical designer, would love to get in contact with how we can sort of get you working on this system. Because like I said, all the contracts are sort of on testnet, and I think what would be cool is if, like, just like we did for Emerald Bot, if we had this float system on testnet, we could have like a front end going and just have like some people experiment with it to see what the process is like. But yeah, so if anything it comes out of the building guild, that I would say let's think about like if anyone's interested in taking up this task, because that would be super cool. All right.
And Jacob, sorry, you also mentioned that I was reading on the Discord that you had already pretty much done all the cadence contracts and transactions.
Exactly. So actually, if we go to this link right here, so this is right here, the PoApp.cdc. This is basically Float. So I'll rename this to Float. This is basically the contract for it right now. And if we go to the transactions and scripts, these are all done as well. And we also implemented the metadata standard. So I just wanted to do this because I know that BR Tech has been putting a lot of work into that, and I'm trying to add to the effort of making it standardized. But we have a metadata views contract, and you can see I added the identifier view and the PoApp metadata view. So think this would be really cool to put on mainnet, and I hope that BR Tech will support this sort of system. Now, the other thing I'm glad you brought this up, Andrea. So right now, the contract is mainly written to have hosts or like project creators create or like contain their own PoApp events collection, so they can create any PoApp event they want, and then users can go to that like link or URL and claim that PoApp. Now, I also want to add support for like secret codes, although I'm not sure how to do that. And then Amit also mentioned QR codes. So I'm not sure how to do that either, but I kind of want to look into how to do QR codes. And then the process is that the user would just claim it. Now, I don't really know like how to make it more secure as of now. But we'll sort of think about that as we go along, because it's probably best to just get like an initial floats, then draw them as pools. Yeah, I think it's cool just to get like an initial sort of testnet version out there, and then we'll like make it more secure and sort of cater to people's needs as we go on. Cool. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say before we go to governance, by the way, is that, so this is just like in my head, but like I think it'd be really cool if like I guess this is more important to whoever's like actually working on this, but I think it'd be really cool if like on the front page we had like a floating island, and across the island we don't make fun of me, but we had like profile pictures of like other projects like floating across the island and like dropping off one edge and like floating up on the other. And so we had like a whole like system of like Flow project and DAO's profile icons like on the front page. So it's like it's it's like Flow enabled proof of attendance, and we're supporting all these projects. Yeah, it would be cool. Oh, that'd be awesome, right? So if it was real time, so like what are the current events going on? Yeah. Oh, that would be so cool, Andrea. Yeah, so like if it was like a floating island and any time like a PoApp or a float was claimed, like a new like profile icon from that like float floated up onto the island and drifted across. That would be so sick.
Yeah, this idea came from like a lot of the blockchain visualizers that you can see activity happening in real time. We could do the same for floats from
Yes.
the island, of course.
Yes, that would be so cool. Um that would be sick. Okay, so so I guess we'll have to find someone willing to actually code this out, but anyway, it sounds like an awesome idea. I guess a little side note, the one skill I always wish I had was to be a good graphical designer. Okay. Oh, last building thing, by the way, I forgot to include this in the slides, but I actually met with the Graphel team yesterday. So I met with Mike, and we're sort of walking through how we're going to integrate Graphel into the Emerald bot. And so we have Phil, actually, community rep at Flow, and my good friend. Phil will be working with us to sort of get Graphel integrated into the Emerald bot. And I also can already imagine Graphel being very helpful for that floating island like profile picture thing, because every time someone claims a float, an event will get emitted, and Graphel will probably just loop through the floats and do that. So I can already imagine that being really, I mean, pretty much exactly what we need, right? Like Graphel needs to do that. So that's exactly what we need. All right, cool. I'm done rambling about building. Sorry. Okay, governance guild. Yay, woohoo! So governance guild. So, so every week, you, yeah, Chase is LOLing in the chat, but every week we have sort of a informative tweet from Chase Chapman herself. Every week we look at Chase tweets. Yeah, exactly. So 2 weeks ago when we had our last town hall, we looked at the tweet. We looked at a tweet from Chase Chapman, right? This week I included another tweet, and this is let's read the story time here. So Chase said, I think we underestimate the power of narrative. You can have the most sophisticated token design or governance mechanisms, but if people don't understand them, it doesn't matter. Now, the reason I included this week was because I think it tied really well into what we were talking about last week, which is like, we were coming up with really cool ideas for a whole decentralized governance mechanism. Yeah, Bam said you were in our town halls without your notice. That's very true. But anyway, we were coming up with very complicated systems that were really cool and could be helpful long term. But at least initially, it's too complicated, right? And we don't want to lose interest or confuse people when they're just getting started in the Flow ecosystem, right? Emerald City has a very unique opportunity in the Flow space where we're sort of paving the way for people to get involved. And if things are way too complicated, way too quick, it's number one, it can be really hard for the Flow community to understand. And number two, it's not going to be easy for other DAOs to adopt our system, right? Because the hope is that we're sort of designing this as the first use case that other DAOs can come in and implement it in their own systems. And if it's too complicated, it'll never work. So that's why I sort of wanted to include this tweet from Chase. So thanks to Chase. Bind is more user-friendly influence. Yes, easy for other DAOs. Yep. All right, so guilds and guild leaders season 0. So this is basically I've been using a lot of like these charts, education, building, governance, or these images, sorry, for each of our guilds. And so this is sort of who we're going to be going with for the guild leaders for season 0. So last time we talked about, well, it might make more sense if we just have more dedicated and clear like leadership roles. Now what this really means is season 0, as many of you may know, is basically like a very loose-ended system, a very loose period of time that we've been working with, from November when we first started to X. Now we're gonna have a slide talking about like what X is and what date that is. But these are the people that have really put in a ton of time in each of these respective guilds. Now this isn't to say that these are the only people that have like contributed. In fact, we're probably going to be adding more people to the building category, one of which, for example, is Chaos, who is from the Flones, who has put in a lot of time in the building category, and FR Labs and people. But these are who we're going with, at least for season 0. Now, the actual role of these people is it's very similar to like and to all of you, to DAO members. But the main role is going to be at the end of season 0. these people in each of their respective guilds will be working to identify who the top contributors are in those guilds, and distributing sort of reputation points and also like initial funding and rewards people that contributed. So in the education guild, we have Bam, Bjartek, and myself. Bam has put in a lot of effort to educate the Flow community and is also learning himself. So that's one thing I really want to emphasize in the education system, is that it's not just about educating, it's also about learning. So Bam himself has shown true dedication to learning a lot about Flow. And one of the core ideas about Emerald City is that we want people to be rewarded for learning, right? We want people to be on board into Flow. We want people to feel like they can learn Flow. And so Bam has done a fantastic job of doing that and will be rewarded just for learning about the Flow and Cadence language. So thank you to Bam and Bjartek. Now on the building side, we have me, myself, and Dean. So Dean and the Genius team has built out like pretty much our whole website, and also a lot of the artwork that you see in this DAO. And others here there are others here as well that I've reached out to, and will be reaching out to sort of talk about, like, maybe stepping up for leadership roles in season 1. Are awesome. And then in governance, we have Kelcoin. So Kelcoin, that is an obvious one. So Kelcoin's been putting in a lot of time. Andrea, obvious as well. Dean has also been putting a lot of time. Myself, Bam, and Support Monkey, of course. So all these people have put in a tremendous amount of time to help out in our governance system, and I'm so grateful to have these people sort of stepping up in leadership roles to help out. So truly, thank you for helping. And like I said, this is not a complete list for season 1. This is strictly for season 0. So once season 1 comes around, we'll sort of talk about maybe what else a leader really means, just besides distribution. So maybe that's like leading meetings or maybe the more administrative stuff, but we'll get into that more to come, for season 1. Cool. So the next thing we have here is like the reputation and distribution system. So how will these leaders actually like decide who will be getting the reputation and stuff like that? Well, the current system, or what we're going to do at the end of season 0, is so let's just take the education guild, for example. So there will be guild leaders, which will be me, Bjartek, and Bam. And there's going to be pretty much everyone else will be here. And then what everyone will do is they will submit what they did during season 0. So if you took time to learn about Cadence or Flow through Emerald City, you would submit that, right? So if you said, hey, I learned how a resource works, and I put in 10 hours a week to learning Cadence, you would submit that here, right? Because we value that learning experience as something that should be rewarded. And also, if you put in a lot of time educating, so for example, Bjartek and Bam are both people off the top of my head that I will, basically be giving reputation points and early funding to for helping so much on the education side. But the idea is that people submit sort of documents of what they've done during that season, and then the guild leaders will look through these documents and sort of recognize those contributions. So it's up to the community to sort of understand what they've done so that they can fill out a document. And if you haven't done so already, I would recommend sort of keeping a document of what you've done in each of the guilds. So have one document for education, one for building, and one for governance. So that at the end of season 0, you can sort of submit what you've done. And then after that happens, the guild leaders will go ahead and give reputation and funding to both the community members and also to each other, but they cannot give to themselves. So that's sort of the caveat there, is cannot give points to yourself. Cool. Now, this is where I'm very happy to have Chase here, because we're gonna sort of need to walk through some of these together. And also, I'm seeing FR Labs here. FR Labs, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm gonna you for now. Okay. So there's two things that I have here. One is voting power. So this ties into our discussion last week, which was talking about, well, how do you actually use your reputation points to vote, right? So reputation points, for those of you that still don't know, are basically points you get in each category. So education, building, and governance, right? So that's how you'll be rewarded here. Now, how you actually use that to vote in this DAO? Well, what we talked about last week was a sort of multiplier, right? So if Alice here, so Alice is in the middle, Alice has 50 education points, 100 building points because she's really good at building, and 25 governance points, right? Now let's say there's a proposal that's tagged with educator and builder. What will happen is, the multiplier here, so if you have the tag, will be 3 divided by x, right? So educator and builder here. So there's 2 tags, so that means the multiplier is 1.5. And so because it's tagged with educator and builder, it will multiply Alice's education and building points by 1.5. And this will be her total. Now for proposal 2, you'll see the educator here is 50 times 3 because it's just times 3 here because it's divided by 1, and it multiplies. Okay, I did math wrong. So 50 times 3 is in fact not 250. I don't know who did that. It definitely was not me. I'm actually pretty good at math myself. So whoever did that. Anyway, so that is and now the total's off. So this should be what is this? 275. Cool. So JFK is making fun of me. Let's get some so can we get some education points to me for learning how to do math? But anyway, this is what it is. So this is sort of voting power based on majority. Now, I sort of want to hand it off to Chase here to talk about maybe some pros, but also some cons with this system and how we could maybe do a consent-based system. So Chase, I hope you don't mind. I'm sort of handing this off to you.
Yeah, no, that's all good. So first of all, I think that this concept of like domain specific voting power is really important. I know that like the governance guild has talked about this, and I think that thinking about a lot of these things is really smart. So I think the system, when it comes to like giving people more voting power, to me makes a lot of sense. Things like sociocracy have been doing this for a long time, so I love this. I think the thing that Jacob and I have talked about that I want to bring up as a point, which doesn't mean that it's like right or wrong, but it's just something that I think is worth considering, is I linked this article from Vitalik about coin voting governance. So the problem with any governance system that operates like this, where you have like an individual who has a certain amount of points, and those points are basically like all added up together and count in the larger vote, is people who have a lot of points or tokens, or tokens plus weighted like specific skill categories, basically have like a huge ability to sway a lot of these votes. And the challenge with that comes in when you say, okay, cool. So how do we decide whether or not like proposal 1, for example, passes? What you're probably going to end up with first is, okay, it just needs to have 51% yes, right? Like that's the very simple version. It's just a majority. The problem is that not everyone votes. So what you ultimately end up with is a system of quorum where you say, okay, if at least 40% of people vote, or 40% of the potential, like tokens that exist have voted. I'm using tokens and points interchangeably here, which I know is probably not the right way to go. But in any case, if 40% of like outstanding tokens have voted on this, and it gets at least 51%, well, then we'll pass it, which, you've reached quorum, and then you have to have a majority. But then you have people who have a lot of power. Basically, if they vote, they can sway this. So this has happened in a lot of other DAOs. Like Index has dealt with this problem with VCs that they have who hold their tokens. They've had early members of the DAO have this problem. And so I think that's sort of worth putting out there, that there are challenges that come with doing majority voting. And the other problem is you're asking everyone, like, should we do this? Which is not always the best way to experiment. So I don't think that it means the system is flawed, but I think there's an alternative option that Jacob and I have talked about that I want to like throw out there, which is a different model. So instead of permission-based with majority voting, like the first option, Jacob and I have talked about consent-based voting. And so the fundamental question that you're asking with consent-based voting is not, do we want to do this? Is this an amazing idea? It's, is this safe to try? And the difference between those things is huge, because with like, is this a good idea? You're basically getting everyone's opinion on whether or not you should do something. And that slows down a lot of systems. Like when you think about most decentralized systems, they're not really innovating because they're using this type of model. And so the other option is actually that you say, okay, cool. Is this like safe to try in general? Like, could we do this and not feel like we're creating a bunch of damage? And so the alternative to this would actually be a space where people who have a certain threshold of like points are basically allowed to say, no, this is not safe to try, rather than like, yes, I think this is good, or no, I don't. If any single person objects and says, no, I don't think this is safe to try, the proposal is paused, and it's on the person who says, no, I don't think it's safe to try, to propose edits that would actually make the proposal safe to try. So the default is basically yes instead of no, because you don't have to reach quorum. It's just like people who have a certain amount of points have the power to say no. This works really well in sociocracy and holacracy, which are both like self-managing systems. A lot of them do it. Because it works way better, and there's actual innovation because people can come up with ideas and try them instead of having to convince everyone that it's a good idea. So you would still have the weighting. It's just like you would need at least, let's say, a total of 200 points to be able to say no. And if you say no, then you basically like have to work with the person who's proposing it to find a better solution and a compromise so that you'd feel comfortable saying yes. So this is something that a lot of DAOs like Mirror, I know, is starting to experiment with this because it's just a better system. I wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if people have thoughts on this, but I can also link a few more resources on this type of governance mechanism, but I think it might be a really interesting option.
Yeah, I would love to hear people's thoughts on this. The reason I love this so much is because, as many of you have experienced in Emerald City, things move very quickly and we're constantly innovating. And so with this sort of system, instead of like Chase was saying, instead of a model where you have to convince people to say yes, the sort of default is, well, it is yes, because we're innovating, we're doing a lot of new things very quickly. But if anyone has a problem with it, they can say no and then provide a reason why, right? So it's not just like I'm going to vote no, but you sort of give a reason why, and that way we can adapt it together to sort of figure out what would be a better option. So Andrea asks, I like this. It also helps provide evidence of results of experiments for yes or no down the line. How do you balance between what counts as trying versus doing it completely? And does the minimum no cause things to halt frequently? I assume this needs to be tweaked so that it takes a good weight of no's.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. So the first one. So I think what I think would be helpful is if I explain the process, because I feel like it will answer a little bit of both. So the way that this would traditionally work is you would have someone who wants to propose something. Let's say they want to build a new product. They put together a proposal, and with the people who are basically allowed to vote on that, which would probably be the Builder Guild, people with enough, with anyone in the Builder Guild. It doesn't have to necessarily be like, people with enough points. Basically, anyone who's interested in this proposal gets together, the proposer shares it, and asks for feedback. Not judgmental feedback, like there are very specific ways to do this. But yeah, it's basically like a temperature test or a temperature check, and you just say, hey, what do we think of this? Like initial thoughts. What do you not like? What do you like? I want feedback. So the proposer takes all of that feedback after that session and makes edits to the proposal based on what people have said. Once they have a final version that they feel good about, it goes up for vote, specifically with the people who have the minimum threshold to be able to say no. If someone says no at this point, one of two things have happened. One, they were not vocal in the beginning stages, which is on them. And like, that's sort of something that I think needs to be figured out organizationally. That's like a cultural thing. Because at the second point where you're in the voting process, you should probably know what people don't like about it already. So I don't think it will cause things to halt super frequently. And it hasn't in other organizations, because by the time you're voting, you sort of already know the concerns that people have had, and you should have tweaked most of those. Still, if someone is saying no, the really important thing here is it's the responsibility of the person who's saying no to suggest a fix that would make it safe to try. And so from like a halting sort of slowing perspective, that's kind of a good way to keep the momentum going. And then the other thing is, if a lot of people say no, by the time you get to the voting process, it's probably a good indicator that the proposal should sort of be rethought out, because it's probably not really what's in line with what the DAO wants. And so I think there's, from a game theory perspective, it's very easy, I think, to be like, oh, but what about this? I think in practice, when you have people who know each other, a lot of these things sort of end up being a little bit more organic and pretty clear that like a certain proposal probably just isn't ever going to pass. So that's one thing. Trying, I think, is an interesting question. So what I think, quote unquote, trying ends up resulting in is proposals that are much more experiment based and iterative, as opposed to these like huge things. So I think what's safe to try is going to be completely doing something. Like you will see results where people are building something completely, potentially. But I think it's much more about like, how do we do an experiment where we don't dedicate huge amounts of resources before we know that something is going to be worth it. And so I think safe to try really means, to what degree can we complete this where we feel like we're getting the benefits without spending a bunch of time or resources or effort. So I think trying is going to have to be like defined by, what the proposer constitutes as trying, but it's also like what the community and people who are voting on it believe is safe to try. And so, and it can be iterative. So the other cool thing that you like pointed out, Andrea, is this idea that like the experiments also do give us an idea of a yes, no, based on whether you should continue doing something, which is really cool. So it sort of optimizes for like collecting data basically and experimenting over doing these like big monolithic proposals that end up taking forever and might not even be worth it. And what this looks like in Emerald City might change, over time. But I think it's a really good model to start with. I would highly recommend also for people who are in the Governance Guild and like want to learn more about this, the podcast that I linked is a fantastic podcast about this exact model.
Thanks for answering my question.
Yeah.
I really like how because when I first asked that question, I hadn't fully realized that the no serves to, in a way, affect the proposal so that it's safe enough to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like if you get no's, you keep changing the proposal until you don't get no's anymore, or you don't get enough weight of no's. So that means that the proposal is safe enough to try. So like the no acts as a controlling mechanism for making sure that things aren't too hazardous, but without slowing down experimentation. So I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for answering the questions.
Yeah, I know I also have long answers, so I apologize for that. And then you're totally right. And also on this question of like, how does it apply to what's called the PoApp? So I think this actually brings up something that's like super important. There are certain decisions that I think don't need to go through a formal governance process. What to call a PoApp, the PoApp like might not need to go through the formal governance process or even be part of it, because it just might not be something that's like important enough. I think that it's important, but it's not like, something that everyone needs to consent to. And this brings up another really good point, which is that I think being a guild leader means that you're an active builder, someone who's understanding what's happening in the space of like Emerald City. And so I actually think that certain types of decisions, like what to call a PoApp, shouldn't be voted on at all. That should just be something that specifically maybe like the builder guild decides on that amongst themselves, and they can have their own, way of deciding together. If someone in the DAO really hates it, then like we can, there can be a larger conversation about it. But I think the types of decisions that you even want governance to help solve is a really good thing to define. And I would guess that probably wouldn't fall under it, but that's up to everyone And I think having like sort of rules to how you decide what should be voted on is important.
Thanks, Chase. One question I actually have that I think would be helpful for people to hear too is like in your experience in other DAOs, what are some like proposals that have gone to a vote? And like when would the system like be helpful for making decisions?
Yeah, I think it really depends. So I think to be fair, a lot of DAOs take proposals to vote that I think should not be. A great example of this is the sushi swap community has voted on way too much, including how much to pay people, which ended up creating a really bad set of side effects for the community. So I think a lot of DAOs have not set a good standard when it comes to what to vote on and what not to vote on. In a lot of cases, I think it's traditionally like, will this require resources from our treasury, significant resources? If yes, then we should be voting on this together. You also have, questions around like, will this cause, would this potentially cause like impact that is sort of like felt at the DAO level significantly? But I don't know. I don't know the right answer for what should and shouldn't be voted on. What I can do is I have a few resources that I like to reference when it comes to like these types of decisions that are traditionally from like organizations that have been doing this for a while, like just self-managing orgs, not even DAOs. I can take a peek at those and share some of the notes that I have from that, because I feel like that's going to be more helpful than me trying to come up with the right answer. But I can share that in Discord like
awesome.
over the next day or so.
That'd be awesome. Thanks a lot, Chase.
I'm kind of where my question was coming from was kind of interested in where the outsider voice comes in to some of these decision-making processes, because I totally kind of get where you're coming from in terms of you want the people in the guilds and who are established making these decisions, but it's also a lot of innovation comes from the margins, and how does that get welcomed into the decision-making process?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. My initial thought, but this could be very wrong, is that one opportunity, and I think this should all be very iterative, but one opportunity is actually saying, in that process that I highlighted or outlined, the community actually comes in at the moment where you're asking for feedback. So instead of saying, hey, the community is going to vote on everything and we're going to have everyone involved in the decision itself, one option might be, hey, anyone can give feedback on this proposal before we take it to the final stage of actually saying yes or no. Well, I guess let me reframe that, to the final stage of people saying, is this safe to try? If not, say no. So like, I don't know if that sort of answers some of what you're thinking, but I think one approach is basically just saying, let's engage the community at the feedback level and get all of their feedback and take that into account rather than at the actual decision level, and trust that the people who have decision-making power are making the right decisions. And then longer term, I also think that part of it is like making sure that the people who are making decisions are chosen by the community. So it's like, it's kind of like representative democracy, but it's domain based. So people who are like good at, a given specific domain are trusted by the community to make those decisions. Of course, like today, Emerald City is small enough where you don't need to do that unless people want to do that. But as it grows, I think that it's about probably engaging the community at the feedback level and then letting them decide who should be making these decisions. And again, this is all just like an idea. If people don't like this or they want to change things about it, I'm excited to see what the Emerald City community changes. But yeah.
Yeah, I think what I like the most about this kind of thing is that, like a couple weeks ago, we were getting so into the weeds about like I was saying, like decentralization and these complex systems. But one of the things that talking to Chase actually made me realize was that I think a lot of us here actually work really well together. And when this DAO is still so small, you know, like relatively speaking, and we're still, a lot of things we're doing are so interconnected, I don't think it makes sense to sort of like remove that communication layer between all of us, because all of us are, like I said, I think we work really well together and we all understand the goals really well. And so I think it makes sense for us to sort of communicate maybe even more on a lot of these decisions that we're making. And so I'm definitely a fan of like making systems in which we're all like sort of working together to make these decisions. Because I think that we work really together. We work really well together. And you know, it might not make sense to actually explore that like full decentralization and all that stuff. You know, until we need it, right? And until we have like a lot of people and we need this. Awesome. So,
And as like a side note, real quick to this question around like being a persuasive community member, being charismatic, being something that's like problematic. I will say I think that one of the things that can be done is having actual contributors have I think this is like a longer term problem, because I think early on this probably doesn't necessarily need to happen. But one of the things that I've seen work relatively well, and Index Coop, for example, did this. They had like actual contributors voting on, they have something called an index council, which is sort of their group of leaders that help make decisions. And they had contributors who have actually created value voting on that. So like if you think about it at a human layer, typically people who are charismatic and sort of persuasive are not actually people who are always going to be doing the most work. And like, that's the concern, right? Is like, you don't want people who are sort of trying to manipulate the community, or don't have the context, or don't have the good intentions that you want. But if you have contributors who are allowing, exactly, talking versus building. But if you have contributors who are actually, they might not even have ill will. It's really about like, what are they? Are they actually just like qualified to do the job? But if contributors are the ones making that decision, what we've seen so far is that they actually tend to be really, really good at like distinguishing between people who are talking and people who are actually qualified. And so I think that's like a better way to do it than being like, hey, anyone who, you know, is in this community can choose who leads a guild. So there are definitely ways to help mitigate some of the challenges that people are talking about, because that's definitely not something that we want.
yeah, you know, I'm just reading the chat here. You know, what Andrea said here, right? Like, I think part of the reason Emerald has grown so quickly is because that we've sort of abided by this, like, is it safe to try mentality, right? It's not just like all talk, but we actually have a lot of products coming out, and we have people learning, we have people designing these systems. Like, people are actually doing. And that's just what Calcoin said as well, talking versus building. I completely agree with all that. And yeah, I think that's why this system sort of makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, there's definitely a lot of innovation to be done on who's actually got the power to make some of these decisions. So that's definitely going to be iterative.
Awesome, Chase. Thank you so much. I know that you have to run soon, so if you have to hop off, no worries at all.
Oh yeah, and I just want to say something real quick on this specific thing. I know that there was like conversation about how to make it so that over time, like less active contributors don't have a bunch of voting power, because a consent-based model only requires a threshold of power to say no, instead of using that as like a scaling amount for how much your vote matters. There's also a little bit less pressure on a reputation system to always be super correct, because like you just want to make sure that people who need to reach the threshold have reached the threshold, rather than having like, you know, way more power given to someone who has way more reputation, and like sort of having a system of reputation completely change the power dynamics.
Yep. Exactly, because just like Chase said, like in this system, like you're not voting based on your token holding. You're just beating a threshold.
Yeah, like the whole half-life. I think the half-life feature totally makes sense. I think it should happen because you don't want people who aren't super active anymore to have as much power, but I think you want to have people earn the right to say no, and have to consistently make sure that they're earning that within their respective sort of domain expertise. But yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Chase. Mr. Power, love the Half-Life. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So this was so the Half-Life was actually something that we had talked about last town hall. So this is sort of an extension of that. I've top off recording. Yep. So the recording will be available later on my YouTube. Thanks, JFK. Have a great weekend. I think adding entropy to skill points is a way to at least encourage. So Half-Life makes sense on non-profit for sure. The for-profit it is a bit hard. Yeah. So at least this Half-Life system is really directly talking about the skill points. And how other stuff comes in is sort of like a to be decided later. Awesome. Yeah, and the reason, okay, so yeah, so sort of getting into the Half-Life model here. So one of the reasons that I actually think this is really beneficial, you know, like Chase said, you know, if we look at these two voting models, it's the system is sort of more important in this one where you actually are voting with your token holding. This one sort of allows for more leeway because you're sort of meeting a threshold. But in either case, what I really like about the Half-Life model is that it reflects not only your contribution, but it reflects your contribution like in the recent times of the DAO. And what I mean by that is like, you know, if you imagine in January, if you put in a ton of work into the DAO and you build the website and you do a lot of cool stuff, and then you take a break for an entire year and you come back a year later, you know, you shouldn't really have the same voting power, right? Because like while you have put in a lot, you're voting on something that you don't really understand as well as someone who has put in a ton of work, right? So if someone else was to make another product and they release it, let's just think about the Building Guild, for example, that person should have more voting because they contributed recently, right? So this sort of system takes into account that, you know, people should be voting based on their understanding of the current status of the DAO, but also still retain the points that they contributed in the past, right? So their points shouldn't go away. They should maybe just have less impact based on, you know, the time that you actually contributed that stuff. So that's sort of why I really like this system. Now, if my graph here is confusing to you, I'll just quickly explain it. So let's say in January you gained 50 tokens. In February, and you know, and then when you get to February, your points in January go down by half. But let's say in February you also gained 100, right? And then when we go to March, you know, your points in January go down again a half. Your February points go down a half, and you know you have the March points. Then you just add up along the diagonal here to get your total for that month. So these points right here, the 12.5, 50, and 100, that would be like, you know, in this case, Alice's total votes, right? I mean, I guess it would be separated. This is per guild, right? So it would be different per guild. So for DAOs with fungible tokens, I think they can apply the Half-Life system as a weight to voting power, like token times. Yeah, exactly. Exactly what you said, Bam. So early adapter making website on year 0 have more relative contribution than year 1 contributor. Plus, we also have how over time. Yeah. So like Bam said, you know, in the theoretical like example where we have tokens, you know, you're voting, like if tokens were to tie into voting power, then yes, it would be some sort of Half-Life model. That's not to say that the tokens themselves would be less valuable. It's just that how they were contributed to voting power would be definitely sort of maybe along. Awesome. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, so season 0, right? So we talked a little bit about season 0, what exactly this means. So season 0 includes everything from when the DAO was started until X. So what is X? What date should it be? Should it be the end of January, end of February? What exactly should it be? Now, the reason that this decision sort of matters is because this sort of ties in. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Chase, for coming. And we'll hopefully see you next time. I'm waving at my screen. So yeah, so if we think about like, you know, end of January, end of February, the reason that this sort of matters is because of the fact that like when the season ends, that's when people will be submitting what they did. That's when people will be submitting you know, reputation points to people. You know, this when people will be getting paid initial funding. So that's sort of why this matters. And then of course when we select this date, that means that season 1 will begin, you know, maybe a week or two later. So it's worth thinking together about when this should end. So does anyone have any initial opinions on this? Since it's interesting, you know, we never really formally submitted a season 0 doc, but in that document was the Emerald bot, the reputation system, maybe some other things that we could do. And you know, if we think about season 0, like sort of where we've come to at this current point in time is what we hope to achieve during season 0, which to me is the most amazing thing ever. I mean, the fact that we have even like, you know, the fact that we've progressed at the rate that we have is incredible. And so it might be worth thinking about when to end this. Now, if we like the current status of the DAO and want to keep taking in contributions and maybe giving out all these things in February, that's fine. But I think we can have season one season a month for now, as we can see we already developed like crazy in 2 or 3 months. What if seasons were checkpoint driven rather than time? Yeah. So Andrea, you know, it's funny you said that. So I guess the thing here is that like usually you would submit like a formal season document. Now we actually had a town hall to go over the season document. We just never formally submitted it because things ended up moving so quickly we sort of forgot about it. But that did exist. And if we think about what those checkpoints were, I could actually look at it after this call. But I think it was actually, you know what? Let me look at it in the announcements channel. Hold on, okay, so I actually want to go to the announcements channel really quick and see if I can actually search for this document, because I think that would be really cool to see like the things that we had hoped to achieve and are now doing. Let me look for it. Oh wait, I actually found it. Okay, cool. So this was it's kind of like funny looking at it now. But this was our season 0 proposal that was made on December 21st. It's now January 22nd, so it's about a month later. So we had our initial goals, which we have stuck by. You know, this was sort of how we was to work community members. But let's see what we did. So so this was ec.bot. So that was our initial name for it. Prepare ec.bot for mainnet. So we did that, right? So this is done. Reach out to DAO, see what they would like to have. We did this. Agree to official name. We concluded on Emerald bot. Foreign development team. We did that. Governance, so develop reward system for building contributors. We did that with the skill points. Develop voting system with the skill points, and now with the consent-based voting. Learn to earn, we have that as well. A way to highlight educational resources. So we're sort of doing that with, I'll actually show you that at the end of the slides. Figure out what educational gaps there are. So, you know, it brings a tear to my eye to see that these were our season 0 objectives, because we sort of, I mean, pretty much did these. So definitely emotional. And then we talked about the committee structure. So we had education, we had building, and we had governance. So all of these are currently up and running. And that was it. So if we sort of think about what Andreas was talking about, where it's like it's objective based rather than time driven, in my eyes, we've sort of done a lot of what this has mentioned. So if that's what we're going with, then maybe it's worth wrapping up season 0 in a couple weeks. But it also, yeah, it depends. So I'm sort of reaching out to you guys here to see what might make the most sense here. And this is something that I think we should come out of this meeting with like a rough idea of when this should end. Because I think it's good to make these decisions together. I think so too. Yeah, I agree, Blue Sign. And I think as well with the start of the float system, I think that might you know. So here's one thing I will say. So the float system, so like just like Emerald Bot sort of took up a lot of our attention during season 0, I think the float will take up a lot of our time during this next segment of time. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to segment the float progress into 2 different seasons. So I guess the question ultimately comes down to, do we want the float season to be in season 0 or do we want float to be in season 1? I think that's the ultimate question. Float era. Woo! I like that. Float era. Bot era, yeah. So, what I usually turn to sort of get opinions here is so add float to 0, extend. So okay, so this is option 1, or option 2 is start season 1 with. So just put your little thumbs up where you think what you think makes most sense. Okay, so it seems like the overwhelming majority here is to start season 1 with okay, look at that. Wow. Okay, so that I think the decision has definitely been made because Support Monkey called it Float Era and everyone loved the name. So there we go. Decision finalized. Threat neutralized. All right.
Jacob, I have a question. Regarding the progress on the reputation system, at what point is it done?
So that's so I was getting a bit ahead of myself. That's a great question. So one of the things we have to keep in mind here as well is that during season 0 we needed to come up with this reputation system, right? And the reason for that is because when the season ends, we'll be giving out funds but also reputation. So right now the reputation contract is quote unquote like written, but like it really supports like guild leaders being able to give out reputation in their own guilds during a specified season. So from a technical point of view, if you think about it, like Andrea, you're part of the governance lead. So what you will get at the end of the season is you'll get a resource that contains the ability to give out X number of reputation points. And it's marked with season 0. So during season 1, it won't be like you won't be able to use it. And you'll have a specified number and you'll be able to give it out to people. The thing though is that this is all on testnet. So as always with EC, we might feel that it makes most sense to progress on testnet first, and have that be the ending to season 0, because season 0 is sort of like the test phase. So what we could do is at the end of season 0, give out testnet reputation points, and then during season 1, it's not only float era, but it's also mainnet reputation era. And get those 2 done by season 1 so that by the time season 1 ends, we have mainnet reputation points. And what you could do is the reputation points that were earned during season 0 get directly transferred over to season 1. So this is certainly something we will have to agree on, because if we do this sort of Half-Life model, we'll have to basically agree that, hey, the season 0 points that you gained, they'll be worth the same amount in season 1, since it's sort of like a test phase. So if that's something that everyone's okay with, then I think we can roll with that for now. And that sort of alleviates a lot of the pressure to sort of get reputation on mainnet, since that doesn't really make sense anyway. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And so I guess one thing I'll add there is that if any Cadence developers here want to help out on that end, that would be really great. Yeah, because I as always I don't want to be like the core developer doing that, because I think things always get built better with multiple minds. Anyway, so we're almost done here. By the way, I know we're over time, but I'm gonna speed up here a little bit. So the treasuries, the current status is I mentioned this in the governance channel. I'd like to review PRs for those. Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, Amit. So I'll show you like the repo for that, and sort of I'm gonna make a lot of updates to that today. Cool. Okay, so yeah, and I'll send it to you, Amit. So the current status, so I mentioned this in the governance committee, but how we're gonna sort of handle funding right now, especially since it's coming from Decentology, is I'm gonna set up a vault that's separate from any like of my current accounts that will just intake a lot of the community grants that we're getting. And then once season 0 ends, the guild leaders will meet in their respective guilds to distribute these funds from the vault. So I will like give the guild leaders the ability to do that. So the way we're probably going to do this is that when season 0 ends, each guild will get a certain amount of funds to give out. Maybe some more than others, but that's TBD. Yeah, so cool. And then everyone will submit a document outlining what they've done during season 0. So Support Monkey asks, speaking of Decentology, how will EC intersect with the hyperverse? So that's a great question. What I've tried to do is sort of stall this question until it makes sense to introduce it. And I think we're sort of maybe getting to that point, but the idea with the hyperverse is that these hyperverse smart contracts that are on the hyperverse are composable. And what that means is that they're able to be used by multiple different people. So if you think about right now, in the Flow blockchain space, every time someone wants to make an NFT project, they have to make their own NFT contract, they have to make their own marketplace, and it's super annoying. And that's one of the biggest problems I see with the Flow ecosystem, is that you constantly have to deploy contracts that are pretty much like literally identical to so many other contracts that exist. Now, where composability comes in is that you publish a smart contract on Mainnet that's composable, so that anyone that wants to make an NFT project can literally just call into it from their account, make up their own instance of it through like a resource or something, and have it be their own data. So like their own total supply, their own capabilities, all that. So where this ties into Emerald City is a lot of the tooling that we're creating is sort of looked at through the lens of, well, we want other DAOs to be able to use this tooling as well, right? So, for example, Emerald ID. Is Emerald ID a system where maybe it should be composable, so other DAOs can create their own versions of Emerald ID? Or for the voting systems, right? If we create voting smart contracts, do we need, it doesn't make sense for us to only define a voting mechanism just for Emerald City, because we're hoping that we're designing these for other DAOs as well. So where this really ties into the hyperverse is when we're developing these smart contracts, making these smart contracts composable, so that we can use them, or the other DAOs can use them without having to learn all these processes that we've been going through over and over and over again. Because as you guys have seen, a lot of these smart contracts and decisions take so long, and that's good, but how many times should you really reinvent the wheel? And so we want these smart contracts to be available for other DAOs. And so that's really where it ties into the composability thing. And then those contracts provide the funding basis of VC. Yes. So the second layer is the auditing and the payment layer. And so if we develop these composable smart contracts, then when other DAOs use our smart contracts, the idea, this is very broad, but the idea is that those DAOs will pay like a royalty fee to Emerald City for setting up that tooling for them. Now, a big thing in my head is that I do believe tooling should be free. I believe the Emerald bot should never have a paywall on it to be used. It's free and open for everybody. But there are systems like governance, for example, where it's like if we set up these really complicated pieces of governance, it's up to other DAOs to, if they want to, create their own systems. But if they want to go with like our reputation-based voting, maybe it makes sense for a royalty fee to be paid to Emerald City for setting up those systems. So yeah. It would be cool to have a base governance contract with different voting modules that the new DAOs could select. So, Tommy, what you're saying is very true. In that right now on Snapshot, actually on Ethereum, they have different. I believe what they're called, but they have different. Oh God, I completely forget what they call it on Snapshot, but they have different ways of voting. So, like majority based, reputation based, whatever that is, token based. So if you own like Blockto, for example, if you own their Blockto token, you get to vote. So what we could do is set up different modules based on the different types of voting and have that be on the Hyperverse. Those fees can always be in their currencies. That way, yeah, exactly. So when DAOs get started, they'll, but they don't have to, but they'll potentially have a token, right? And so if they have a token, what they could do is pay in their token. So Emerald City effectively gets percentage of their token. And so that way, Emerald City is sort of directly reliant on those DAOs being successful, which is sort of like a good incentive mechanism, right? Because Emerald City should really be getting paid based on the success of our products. And so, like, if a DAO is really successful, then maybe it makes sense for Emerald City to be getting more of a cut, and we'll be doing that through their token. But if a DAO is very new and their token's worth a cent, it doesn't make sense for that DAO to be paying hundreds of dollars in royalty to Emerald City because they're not at that stage yet. So if there's some sort of like token allocation based on their token, then that would be awesome. Is there a model where the tools are free to users, but they are funded by Flow in perpetuity because it makes Flow an attractive chain? So, okay, so this was the last thing I wanted to talk about in the treasury system was I really want to figure out a way to reach out to the Dapper team to figure out how we can sort of get like a community grant or something, because at least how I view this is that a lot of the tooling we're created is very beneficial to the Flow ecosystem, especially if we're doing things like PoApps, right? This is something that doesn't exist on Flow and the reputation system, and we're sort of breaking barriers with the DAO that we're building. And so I think it would at least make sense from the Dapper side to maybe provide some funding to do that. Especially towards Emerald City itself. And so if we set up like an Emerald City treasury, I think it would make a lot of sense for Dapper to submit like a community grant or something that to fund this sort of thing. Yeah. Oh, and Andreas said, leave this with me. Awesome. Yeah. So in terms of like specific needs, that's a good question. Grant or invest / gain governance. What do you mean by that, Amit? So you mean like a Dapper sort of gaining governance? Oh yeah. So what Andrea was saying. So yeah. So I was also talking to like a VC fund has. Oh, I see. Yeah. So I guess we have to figure out like a mechanism for Dapper to. I totally see. Yep, that makes sense. So I'm not sure actually. To be honest, I'm not sure.
So maybe I can jump in here. The reason I wrote that is I think I'm sure that Dapper is going to be interested in this project, right? In terms of, I can't promise anything, of course, but what would be helpful is to understand what does Emerald need or want from Dapper. That way, the conversations can be along those lines versus just, hey, we want help, and then it could be completely open ended.
Yep.
So maybe one action item after this town hall is to come up with a proposal that I can then take to, I can take to the team and say, hey, look, they're doing some great stuff. Can we help them out, or can we provide some grants, especially in the education side? I know that we wanted to set up, some sort of program on our side, and we talked about this in the Discord as well. About how do we reward community members building educational content for Flow, and since one of the guilds of Emerald City does exactly this, it would definitely make sense to, support that effort. Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, so I guess one of the action items here is to sort of like maybe I guess if the guild leaders could do this, that'd be great, and then any other input would be awesome as well. For people to sort of get together and figure out like what exact funding do we need, what are we maybe expecting, and like why. So like where would we put this funding? Whether it's into education or if it's into building Float or whatever it is. It'd be good to have sort of like a specified thing. Cool. So yeah, I guess we'll get like a funding doc going. So Alice worked with them on a pilot, which is different than a grant, but I can say they were very hands-off with us. It's like Andreas saying we had a clear proposal. They were open to cool projects. I think they would likely be great partners, but I am biased. Yeah. So like Sport Monkey saying, I think if we were just to, it doesn't have to be too complicated, but if we were just to, if anyone would like to take on this task, I'd be happy to be involved in this as well. Sort of specifying what grants we might need and where we would put that. Okay, cool. Well, I know we're going over time. We did that last time too. I know I got things going, but cool. Yeah. So we'll circle back to like the to-dos after we go through this. So Education Guild, as always, updates, flows here to Jacob and the YouTube series I'm doing. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. This is just from my end, but I always like to point this out. Yeah. Community content. So this is from Bruce. I'm gonna leave this to next town hall because Bruce is actually dealing with connection errors. But Bruce has an amazing article or a series that he's doing on decomposing an actual contract between businesses into a smart contract. So we're going to touch on that next week. BAM's campaign registry. So round of applause to BAM. I'm very proud of BAM because I'm very proud of BAM because when we started this DAO in November, BAM was learning Cadence. BAM was learning, the Flow ecosystem, and in just a matter of a couple months, BAM has now created a awesome smart contract with transactions and scripts here. And so you can see BAM's contract is a whitelist contract in which there's campaigns, and you can register for campaigns, and campaign creators can like create their own whitelists. So you can join them and sort of keep track of who is in the campaign and all that. So really great job by BAM. I just want to say I'm very proud of you. I focus more on the number guessing. So BAM also has a number guessing DApp, which is pretty funny as well. That's on testnet. So BAM, do you mind linking that? It's actually pretty funny. Maybe we can play a quick round of that. That's funny. I'll keep trying to learn. Yeah, so that's the point, right? So it doesn't matter, as if you're learning and having fun with it, that's the point of Flow, right? So just keep on learning, keep doing what you're doing, and we're very proud of you, BAM. So last educational update. So I got deaded on GitHub, which I never thought would happen. Gotten deaded many times over iMessage, but never on GitHub. But I was deaded as of 13 days ago by the Exorcism team. Sad day for me. But maybe they'll get back to us eventually. And I'm to be honest with you, I'm not like super. This is like kind of a joke. I'm not like actually that sad about this because like while it would be amazing to have an exorcism course, if they're not willing to go ahead and do this, it's fine. This would require a lot of effort anyway, so we can sort of figure out how to handle the education stuff on our own. And we can always come back to this. So yeah. So there's a couple other alternatives to Web3 University, Flow itself. Yeah, so there's a lot of other alternatives here, so it's not that big of a deal, but I'm just putting this in here. And this will be the last time I mention Exorcism unless they actually get back to us. So that's that. So that is really all of the updates I had. Just sort of going over this again. What are the main to-do items? Well, number one, the main to-do thing is to figure out sort of this funding request doc for Dapper/Flow team. So if we get a team around this, that would be amazing. The next thing that I really want to talk about or do want to tackle is the reputation system. So actually getting this reputation contract on testnet. So that would be really great. And then the last thing that I really want to emphasize is the float system. So reaching out to sort of front end devs or designers or graphic designers, can't speak, to sort of do this system. So that would be awesome. And with that, we'll be wrapping up season 0. I think in the next couple weeks, we'll revisit this during the next town hall. And with that, I'm very happy with another town hall.
Thank you, Jacob. It's been awesome as usual.
Thank you very much. Many hearts, many hearts. Thanks for laughing.
Now we have the classic no one wants to leave moment.
yeah, everyone's staying saying goodbye. I love it. It's so funny. Thanks, Efra Labs. Thank you, BZ, for coming. Thank you, Mr. Power Gauge, for all your questions. Thank you, Amethyst. Thank you, Kelcoin. Thank you to all the guild leaders as well. Thank you, Max, very much. Thank you to Dapcoder. Thanks, Efra Labs, again for the animations you did on the Emerald ID. Those were amazing, and everyone has loved them so far. Thanks, support monkey. I'm waving at my screen. And definitely reach out if you want to get involved in the float system. I've very heavily emphasizing that because I'm very excited about it.
I'm gonna drop a little screen, like the splash screen, that I kind of designed a little bit.
I would love that, Max.
So I will drop that in there right now. It's not perfect, right? But it's maybe a starting point.
Yes.
And then so
Max, thank you so much for doing that. I love it. Yeah. So what you did here is amazing. I love your classic line, the flow enabled proof of attendance. That will definitely be on there, and this is awesome. Yeah. So what you're doing is sort of scoping out like what the sort of front page will look like. So the Connect wallet, the events, the FAQ. That's awesome. And I'll revisit this sort of offline to give more extensive feedback. But Max, thanks so much for doing that.
yeah, I'm not really great at the 3D modeling, so that's my attempt at a floating island.
I love it. Yeah. What I'm thinking of doing is maybe reaching out to some like. Honestly, I have no idea how to do this, but I've never experienced this before. But like, I'm gonna try and reach out to some like experienced graphical designers to get like a Emerald native like floating island system that sort of like looks really nice and all that. So we'll see what people think about that. And if anyone has any like graphic designer friends that are like maybe looking for some paid like opportunities, then by all means lead them my way.
I'll send some on your way, man.
Awesome. Thanks, support monkey. Yeah, and one other thing that we'll mention is that it might be worth like thinking about like a common design theme across all of our products, right? Because we don't want all of the things we do to have like different themes and stuff. So whatever color schemes we come up with on our different sites will probably be like the same color scheme, similar kind of stuff, same vibe, same like gamey vibe that we've been going with. Whatever designer or whoever we reach out to, we'll sort of mention that like, we'll try and come up with like a more clear like design framework.
Should we add that to the documentation page, or at least start writing standard colors? Maybe once Dean is finished with the website, because I really like that color scheme, and it's just a matter of jotting down, okay, what's the official green, what's the official black, what's the official font.
Exactly.
What do you think?
Exactly. So that's a great suggestion. So what I'll do actually is load up another page on the documentation, and I'll sort of start defining like what our common themes are, so that across all of our products we have like a general vibe of what's going on.
Right, and then maybe also upload a zip file with like all the logos, like the emerald one with the circle, and the other one which is similar to an emerald but is also really cool, like the circle.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because so if people do some mock-ups and stuff, they all have access to those in native resolution.
That's a great idea. I'll do that ASAP. Yeah.
So just on the topic of floats, I would love to tackle the front end, but on one condition, which Jacob you probably already know, which is I would love to do it in Svelte rather than Next.js and React, because I despise React. I think it was made. I don't know. Once you've tried Svelte, you never want to go back. So that's my condition, but I'd love to help out.
Listen, Andrea. If you want to do it in Svelte, go ahead. I would love that. Load up the Svelte. That would be awesome.
Okay, and it's super easy to pick up actually, because the cool thing about Svelte, and a bit of I'll just take 30 to talk about it.
Yeah.
If everyone's okay. The cool thing about Svelte is it's a compiled language. It's a compiled framework, so it compiles to native JavaScript. So there's no framework that's being run at runtime, right?
Yeah.
And since it's compiled, the actual developer experience is a lot better, because you don't need to have this weird script that has CSS in it and this weird JavaScript that has HTML in it. You have a an HTML page that has a script tag, and in the script tag you have the JavaScript, and in the style tag, just like a regular HTML page, you have the CSS styles, which are written in normal CSS, and it's so intuitive, and then everything gets compiled into a super fast app where you don't have to have the virtual DOM. And so as you can see on the left, right, that's like a regular JavaScript page. That's a regular HTML page that you would have without using a framework, right? You have a script tag and you have a let, and then the only thing that changes is in the HTML you reference variables, and like there's a little bit of syntax. It's kind of also similar to Vue in a way, but the advantage is that Vue, the abstraction of Vue, like the actual framework, is also kept at runtime, whereas with Svelte everything gets compiled, so it's a lot faster.
Listen, I'm all in.
Okay.
I'm thinking about even learning some Svelte after this.
Dude, you should. I highly recommend everyone to do it. It's you're gonna get blown away.
Yeah. This is awesome. Yeah, and Andrea, yeah, if you want to go ahead and start doing that, I mean, of course we should. I mean, we could like figure out like the design and stuff, but if you want to,
of course,
take the lead on that, that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah. Should we wait for like a basic design, at least like what pages? I think it was F wrote or shared a couple very rough mock-ups about like what the page should contain.
Yep.
Should we wait for the design first, or should we just go ahead and build a very rough version?
So what we can do is we can figure out like the general themes. I'm gonna look into sort of like quote unquote like hiring, but also just like looking to see if any graphical designers want to come on board.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll have a building guild meeting specifically for floats. So we won't have to get everyone together, but we'll have a specific meeting for it, and then we'll go over the design, and then we can start getting a rough sketch going.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, I'd also love to use this opportunity if we are working on it, or if I am working on it, to turn it into an educational piece of content. So maybe record, I know that we've done a couple videos together where you were recording. Maybe we can do the opposite, where I record and you join in, and I kind of teach you Svelte and you kind of help with the cadence side, and we put things together.
I would love that.
And whoever wants to join as well. I think that would be cool.
I would absolutely love that. That's a great idea. Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Great.
All right. Awesome. All right. I have to jump, by the way. Sorry, were you going to say something, Jacob?
No, that's it. I just want to say thank you, Andrea, for all your help.
Okay. Cool. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
You too.
Later.
Bye. How do you hang up?
At bottom left, disconnect.
No, because I first had to stop watching the stream.
I'll just ban you from Discord. It's fine.
Bye.
Bye. Amazing. All right. Yeah, so we always get into this sort of like who's gonna leave last, which I love because that means that everyone's happy to be here. But if that's it, I'm gonna wait another minute and then we can head out.
So one thing I would throw out there, after watching the Twitterverse for like the last 2 or 3 weeks with the maximum NFT hype, it's just like the ICO craze a couple of years back. It feels very similar. But the same thing will happen to the flow chain, I think. And so it's good for us to kind of be on guard. There are some real weird social hacks going on in the Ethereum space right now because there's just enough people there that those kind of people rise to the challenge, as it were. I don't know how Emerald City can solve that yet, but I think it's something that we should think about, creating tools that help guard against rug pulls, spammers and scammers, and people who are basically hyping up non-existent projects for just enough time to make money. I'm not really sure how to solve that yet, but I saw a lot of crazy shit over the last 2 weeks on Twitter that's just wild.
Yeah, listen, Swarm Monkey, I'm really glad you brought this up. With any tooling that we're building, we want to be like mindful of the sort of effects it would have. Of course, like I I think it's always easier said than done, and like it's easy for people to say like, oh, we need our products to be aware of that, and then like they never actually do that. So let's actually think about that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the float system and stuff like that, I was actually talking to Chase yesterday, and I don't know if this is what you were really directly mentioning, but talking to Chase yesterday about the PoApp system on Ethereum, and it's basically been like completely run over because every time someone publishes a PoApp event, automated bots run through it and claim it, and then they're able to use those PoApps in whatever like Discord they want. Saying like I was here and like they actually weren't. And I'm sure you've seen in Emerald City itself, there was a couple bots that actually came in here and commented hi in every one of the channels. And the reason for that is because like people have figured out that like some DAOs are measuring like contribution based on how many times they've chatted in the Discord. And that's just like completely disgusting, and like we're never gonna do that. But anyway, the point is that there are scam bots out there, and we should definitely think about how we can sort of mitigate that. But at least initially, the thing that we can do is say, listen, for those of you that are using our float system, this is more like for fun and gamey sort of stuff, which is what we talked about actually with Flowverse in our previous meeting. And don't use these as like, distributing funds, because there's a lot of bots out there that will just claim it.
Yeah, it makes me think maybe, I've been thinking about like testnet versus mainnet, and why for some things it might be better to never take them off testnet so that they can't have monetary value, at least not in the same way.
Yeah.
And that might be a thing to think about, is like, hey, if we don't want a thing to be as readily gameable by bots, maybe it just lives on the testnet. I don't know if there's any downside to that or not. I know it's not quite as secure, so some things will have to be, there's some things you can't do there, but maybe for things that we don't need ultra high security on, you just stay on testnet.
Yeah, I value testnet very much, and that's why a lot of what we've done is actually currently running on testnet, and will stay there for quite a bit. I don't see a reason why we should put Emerald ID on mainnet anytime soon. But with this PoApp system, if we sort of design this system around like, listen, these PoApps should not have monetary value, I think we should keep them on testnet. But I do think we should transition it to mainnet at some point, and the reason for that is because like, if someone is attending and they're getting a lot of PoApps, we want them to be proud of that, and we want them to own that on mainnet and be able to display that. And if project hosts want to transition their floats into actual currencies, that's up to them, and we should give them the ability to do that. It's just that, there's the always warning that they're not the most secure. Now, we also had a meeting with Nick Kalyani I think it was like a couple days ago in this Discord, where we talked about like, well, how do we make this more secure? And Nick mentioned he mentioned this whole system where like you're on a web page, almost like Clubhouse, where you constantly like sign a transaction saying I'm here like every 10 minutes. And if you've done that enough times, at the end of the session, it would automatically give you the float instead of like a one-time claim. Anyway, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself, but there are systems we can design to make them more secure. And yes, these should be on testnet now, and we'll look into putting it on mainnet.
So one of the things to look at then, and I bet you'd be able to actually get them to listen to you, then would be to, I don't even know, I'll have to think about who you'd reach out to, but schools have had to solve this problem with respect to making sure you're not looking at different screens when you're taking tests.
Yeah, so that is the bane of my existence, let me tell you. When I'm taking my math tests and that comes up on the screen,
Yep.
Tough.
So maybe something like that, some kind of, okay, I don't know. Yeah, I'm rambling now.
No. It's, I mean, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's called like, Tommy, we would know. It's called like, browser. It's lockdown browser, I think it's called.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's called like lockdown browser. And it like keeps you on one page and then forces you.
They controlling you.
Yeah, they literally control. Yeah, exactly. But so we can do that for floats, where you load up the web page and it's like your lockdown browser, your entire computer turns off. You're only allowed to claim the PoApp. But anyway, I'm kidding. But we could definitely look into that. See what. But yeah, back to your point, Smart Monkey. Testnet initially. Say it's not super secure, and then if we go to mainnet, maybe add some.
Yeah. So and I don't. That is outside of my skill set. Humans, I know, but the coding stuff, I'm still banging my head against the wall on.
Yeah. I'm happy enough to have you working on the human stuff, so that's my governance lead.
Yeah, I would say after fun stuff should be something that the builders also start to think about maybe in season 2, like rolling out certain standardized gamified things. Because that's another thing that you can. How do I say this? A lot of people don't realize that they can set up very unethical behavior loops, Skinner boxes. And that's because it's just a thing that humans tend to do to each other. And the tools that I see deployed on Ethereum right now are really close to Skinner boxes, where it's like World of Warcraft back in the early days, where they hired psychologists to get people to click the button more frequently.
Oh yeah.
I see a lot of the same behavior loops being deployed now with NFTs. And part of that is because because they're all gamified. It's this whole play to earn kind of mentality, which is great because we're monetizing gaming and millennials, we love to game, but it's also really dangerous because you can get people addicted to it. There's lots of research on that like you can get people addicted to virtual game systems. Yeah. If you reward if you hit their dopamine system right. And so it's because Flow is so young and Emerald City is kind of placing itself as a gateway into the Flowverse. You come through the Emerald City gateways and you pick up all the tools and things you need in order to have fun and flow.
Yep.
Because we're here first, if you guys build tools that are maybe a little more ethically sound, are harder to abuse or be used for abusive purposes, you can have a long-term effect on the network.
Love it. Thanks, Sport Monkey. Yep.
Sorry.
No. Never be sorry. I love it. To tell you the truth, this is something where I have zero experience. So getting to hear from you, whether it's in Emerald City or outside of it, is always educational for me. Plus, I think you have a unique perspective on technology before this whole NFT craze boom, and so a lot of times you draw connections between that, and I like that a lot.
Yay for being slightly older. What's his name? Oh, I forget his name. He's the Find guy. He's my age too.
Dartek?
It's yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to know that we can still play along with it's my whole life has been tech oriented.
Yeah.
I built my first computer at 5, so my whole everything. My grandfather. I was very lucky. My grandfather was in tech. He built rockets and worked in satellites back in the 60s. So when my mom had me as a teenager and I was living with grandma and grandpa, I got given parts to put computers together and build transistor radios. And so it started a love affair with me and tech at a very young age.
Wow.
And it's all just kind of like learn as you go because there were no books given. It was just like, here are the parts, make it work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. No, that's good. I mean, even to this day, I want to create. I want to build my own computer, but every time I go to do it, I just whip out and buy a pre-built one because I don't know how to do it.
God, I can't do pre-builds. They kill my soul, man.
I don't know how to do it. It's a war monkey. You got to get into the live stream. It can be maybe like a Twitch stream and it's a live stream of you tutoring me on what to buy.
That's fair. I know it seems daunting, and it's just like coding because there's just syntax and there's grammar. And once you know those two things, you can look at the parts and it's just like, okay, cool. This part goes with that part. That part doesn't go with this part.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier than it used to be. Let me tell you, just because there's been so much consolidation in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not at one point in time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there might be 6 or 7 different kinds of Intel chips on the market that all had different sockets. So if you wanted to go pick up a motherboard, you had to make sure not only that you were getting a motherboard that worked with Intel chips, but that you were getting the right fucking socket. Oh my god.
Yeah, I tying back to your origin story. I love hearing about how people got into tech. For you, I guess it was building a computer at 5. For me, it was in 5th grade. My friend told me to download Minecraft, And ever since I downloaded Minecraft, it was tech for me. I just love the video games, and I feel like video games are like a great segue into tech, you know, because like you like start to get interested in code.
Minecraft in particular, like if there is evidence for the future reaching back into the past to influence things, it's Knock, right? Who created
Notch.
Minecraft? Yeah,
Notch,
that turned so many of you guys into coders because
Yeah.
you could code your world inside Minecraft. It was insane.
What Notch did for young like for young kids that like could be interested in tech, like he did so much, way beyond Minecraft. Like the amount of people that I know got into tech because of Minecraft is crazy.
Oh yeah, it taught you guys how to think programmatically.
Yeah,
We didn't have Tetris didn't teach me how to think programmatically. It taught me how to pattern map for sure, but like not thinking programmatically. Fuck no. We didn't get those kind of games till far later. That's one thing I'm jealous about. You guys, I'm an older millennial. We know hardware better than the younger millennials and Gen Z because the hardware for you guys all came pre-wrapped in a fucking tablet or a smartphone. Mine came in parts and I had to put it together. Like,
yeah.
so there's a big difference in how we grok the tech.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all have our own origin story. For Tommy here, Tom W525, I taught him everything he knows. He's been my apprentice for a long time. He probably wouldn't be here without me, honestly. So you're welcome,
Nice.
Tommy, for everything you've done, for everything I've done for you.
Very differently.
I'm just messing with you. Yeah. For those of you that are curious, I know Tommy in real life, so we're really good friends. And so I'm very grateful that he's meetings. All right, that's about it. That's all I have.
Later.
Later. I'll see you all in the next meeting. Peace.
Right.